Hello. Hi. How's it going?
Hi.
I think I've seen you before. You look familiar. Where do I know
Yeah,
you
you
from?
too. You
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's right. You're the person that's the world famous, award winning, two-time most valuable practitioner from the Global Virtual Design
I
Sprint.
thought you
You're,
were gonna say champion.
I did, didn't I? You were the world champion at one point for like almost 8 months, I think. You were a world champion. So, Sandy Lam, and I can stop the
I
broadcast now. No, we're going to be talking about the Wednesday of the virtual design sprint. So the past couple of videos we've done, we did one for Monday with Sandy, and then Andy Davis came by and we got rip roaring drunk and did Tuesday. No, we didn't. I'm kidding. But we did talk about alcohol being like a relaxant at the end of a Tuesday session, but that's totally up to for people if they want to do that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at Wednesday. So we've gone through the first 2 days, and Wednesday for the virtual design sprint historically has been done a particular way, but for GVDS-5, it's going to be different. I'm going to be kind of casting out a bit so that things are a bit more even-handed. But let's get into it. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen on my side so you'll be able to see the what we've done so far and what we're currently doing. So what this typically does is we'll go through a bunch of topics and that are in white squares here, and then the blue squares are going to be some talking points as me and Sandy kind of will talk through everything. So Sandy, just for our reference, do you have a hard stop at the top of the hour that you need to get to?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Only
so
to
we'll
feed
go.
the dog.
Yes.
That's all.
So if I start hearing going row row, then I'll know
Yeah.
that we got to cut it short. So
Yes.
okay. All right, so let's get right into it with prototyping. This is usually for people that are running advanced virtual design sprints. That's the first thing that you have to kind of do and consider is prototyping. So you put designers to collaborate on prototyping. Can you guys kind of elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, because most of the times during GVDS, it's not there's more than just one designer. Actually, not just GVDS. Most of the design sprints, you want to have more than one designer. And it's very important that the designers actually collaborate well. It's a matter of learning because unlike the typical design sprint team, the designers already know each other, know how they each other that how they actually work. In GVDS, most of the designers they are kind of new to each other, so you have to learn how each other like to work, their style of working, and um, what tool they like to use, what kind of time zone is also important to manage because maybe you're working together means that you work on one part and then come together, and the other person work on their second part and then you come together and put them together in the end or something like that. So it's very important to know how to work with the other person or maybe other people as well, maybe more than two designers. Yeah, that I found very important. But one thing I can also put in here. Um, just remember one thing more.
So kind of
Yeah,
work in pairs, like leverage a
yeah,
design system.
yeah.
Um, when you
It
say
has
a
been
design
super
system,
helpful.
are you talking about maybe a Kanban board, or do you have one in particular that you're thinking about?
So like design system meaning like those carbon design system or material design this system. Like there are many of them out there. Pick one because there's not much points to recreate those components yourself if there are already all those design kits. Uh, if yeah, I mean, if you already personally you already have your own design kit, you can also use that. It doesn't matter really, but I would say because the prototyping time is so short, try not to be too concentrated on all those details and use something that is existing and reuse them. That would be really helpful.
I'm going to put down here work in groups, small groups of 2 to 3. So that's
Yeah.
not just the designer isolated to do what they're supposed to do. Kind of make sure that you have kind of a duo or a trifecta of people working on a particular dimension of what you're supposed to be doing with the prototype. Um, another
Yeah, in
thing
the
is,
past, sorry.
go ahead,
Yeah, in the
go
past,
for it.
what has worked really well for us is that like we have more than one designer, meaning more than one person who is actually doing the prototype. And then the rest of the group, regardless of your role, like even if you're just an advisor or just a participant, they actually contribute on collecting all the access for the designers. meaning the designer will say, sometimes we use like a Kanban board to say what assets they need, like if they need a hero image, if they need community type of image, if they need images with dogs, I don't know, like, you know, like what kind of image they need, they put it on there, and then they other participant can kind of like sign up to help the designers to find those images, or text, like not all designers are good at writing, so maybe so maybe someone else could write for them. So they just say, okay, I need a paragraph here, can someone write that, and then contribute that way. Sometimes we even went in the effort of making their videos, which actually we found that very helpful in most of the cases to demonstrate the idea that we are trying to convey. Because in most of the design sprints, we are not really trying to test on the UI, like not the actual design of the prototype. What we are testing is the concept, the idea that we come out from the prototype. And when we insert like a video inside where having someone actually talk about the concept a little bit, or pretending like I'm the owner of this company or this app, and explain a little bit about it, it has been really helpful. But that is quite a bit of effort for some, and some maybe they have experience and it's easier. But that kind of video, you don't want to rely on the designers to do. So yeah, it's a group effort in the end. Nice hat.
Want me to say 10?
The dog's face here. Yeah, that's great. Awesome.
In essence, in a virtual design sprint, the designer becomes the art director, or should be the person that kind of is the facilitator, takes a step back, or at least works in tandem with the designer to kind of direct it and have a vision around it. If you don't have a designer on your team, then it's a different dynamic altogether. But something that's going to happen in this next GVDS is there's going to be a script. So it's not necessarily just, you'll have your design system and you'll have a work schedule process, but going into it, everyone's going to understand the kind of work that needs to be done for a prototype, the copy, the system behind it, the architecture, and everyone's going to have a piece that they're responsible for. And the designer is also going to be someone where they're going to have their focus very narrowed, so that they're not trying to boil the ocean and create an entire app in 24 hours, because that just doesn't work with people. I think that's a little unfair to ask the designer to do all of that work like it's supposed to be, even if they're very enthused about it. The last thing I want is for somebody to come away with the event thinking that they took way too much time, or they exhausted themselves on something and never want to come back again because of a result. So I try to avoid that.
Yeah. Two kind of unusual tools worth mentioning is also WordPress and workflow. Those two, they have like a lot of templates. So I don't know, like it depends on the experience that you have. Some may just want to go down the route of using Figma or like XD and those type of design tools. But what I've seen actually, like some people, they could prototype super fast with WordPress and workflow, because they kind of leverage templates and drag and drop and things like that. So
you said it was called workflow?
Workflow, right?
Or Webflow?
Webflow, sorry.
Okay, that's what I work with.
Webflow. Yes. I think there are more than just Webflow now, but I don't know all of them.
There's a lot of them. I use Webflow for the GVDS website, so it's pretty simple to use. Because I can leverage a CMS, and I haven't done the e-commerce stuff, but there's a lot of tools in there that you can leverage. More often than not, you're going to want to know what your team is familiar with and what you want to bring there. So they're going to have an aptitude for learning new things versus what they know, and it's just a matter of measuring their willingness to try new things. So it'll have to be a group conversation and see where that goes.
Got to turn a little bit more towards the camera there, and then put the hat.
It's an 8-year-old.
What exactly is it? It's like a hand towel or something?
It's 101 Dalmatians. It's supposed to be like a table napkin in a way, but it's been used over time. The head's coming off.
That's good now. It's good. Nice.
All right, I'll do the rest of it like this, so you can
That's
consider.
GVDS for you, by the way.
Yeah. That sound you heard was my son's like call to basically get on and try out his new map on Roblox that he submitted. So anyway, so yeah, so for the design, we're going to be pushing no code tools like Webflow, and
Yeah.
there's also one for mobile design that's the same way. So if you don't necessarily have to get really deep into development code like you have in the past, I'm going to be pushing Webflow as this is a way of kind of visually kind of creating something that you can post, depending on how much money you want to spend, or if you don't want to spend anything, want to learn something free. There's also no code tools for that. Squarespace is one, even though their templates tend to be less user friendly. It's still an option just to basically learn things. So.
Yeah, and I would also say like take this opportunity as like a learning as well, so you can also explore new tools that you're not super familiar with. I think that's also like go to the third role where I said like relax, like don't get too stressed that you have to finish the prototype in one day. I mean, yes, this is the design sprint rule, but we are in GVDS, so sometimes I kind of let it go and be more relaxed that way. So then we are not super stressed, like we are not coming here to kill ourselves here. So
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the things I was thinking about doing for the 2 weeks prior to the sprint was not necessarily forcing teams to choose a challenge, but to have some pre-written challenges based on the feedback I've gotten so far between Iva's networking event that happened Wednesday and what people have been doing asynchronously. But taking those 2 weeks to have opportunities to try problem framing and to try it with particular challenges, particular things, so you can preload those, doing a couple of LDJs to give people the opportunity to experience that, and then invite others who have other on their teams that want to have a challenge in mind, but they want to like make and use their particular storytelling method. And it's kind of sharing what people know, but also giving people an opportunity to learn. So I'm kind of thinking that could be a way of doing problem framing and exploration of the challenges, but make it more community based, so that when it comes to execution, you not only have the point of view from your team, but other people who decide to kind of come into it because they like the challenge and say, so I have this point of view, or here's how it can go. And you can take all that information and synthesize it on your Monday and say, what's been sticking with you and what's your impression? And then you walk through the script for that particular GVDS. So
yeah,
it'll
that
be
they kind
messier
of own it.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit messier for me as in terms of organizing it, but I think it should pay off a lot of dividends, and it keeps
You
to
can
that
handle
learning
it.
promise.
I know
Yeah.
you can handle
I'll just
it.
put this a little bit lower to cover that. It's like, yes, okay. I'll sleep when somebody's not talking. Just
Yeah,
do it that way.
that could be a good trick.
Yeah, there you go. So let's move on to user testing. This is something that could happen later, but may also happen on Wednesday, or getting prepared for it. So you put recruiting user tester and promoting on social.
Yeah,
How
what
have
I
you
meant
done?
is not really what I meant here is not really doing the user testing on Wednesday, but getting themselves prepared for it. Maybe we need to reword it on top.
Okay.
Yeah, recruiting user tester, promoting on social. So one of the most effective way anyway for me has been doing the recruitment, getting user tester through promoting, like doing a social media post on LinkedIn, Twitter, those things on the social media platform, and get people get on, like try to do the user testing with us. The other way is to just leverage the GVDS community. I personally don't like to do that as much, because I like to actually use this also kind of like a networking, kind of like a promoting GVDS opportunities. So I like to actually do it on social media when I do the recruitment. Yeah. One thing I want to emphasize is also that make sure that you write it on the recruitment that this is not going to be paid unless your team wants to spend some money. because very often the user tester will assume that this is like a paid effort. Yeah. Yeah, and prepare an outline that is more for, I guess, the researchers, but on the other side, actually the whole team could contribute. What we like to do sometimes is that we use like we do like an online sync on Wednesday. Typically during a design sprint, you don't actually meet on Wednesday. You just kind of let the designers to do their work. But what I've done, what I have found really very helpful in the past GVDS is we do like a quick sync on Wednesday, maybe meet for 1 hour or something, and then the designers can show the team what they have done with the prototype, and then the the user researchers can have like a script written down, and then they can actually rehearse in a way to use the prototype that existing, rehearse it. They can get, we have done it with Robert also, but you can get any other team members as well to pretend that you're not doing the user testing and run through that process, the dry one with it. And then the other team members who are watching or listening, they can give you some feedback so you can refine the script. I found that has been really helpful. Yeah. I guess this is not like a typical design sprint process, but it has been really great because we are learning here.
Yeah, and plus you're it's not going to be just one person doing the interviews like it has been traditionally. It's multiple people on your team going through the process and interviewing people, so that you can understand what it takes to go through the motions of,
and builds the confidence, right? Like, because maybe one of the team members are very into user testing and they know what to do, but then others want to try it out, but they have no idea, and then they kind of get shy in a way to do the user testing. But after that rehearse period or that section, then they have seen how it has been done, then they can take it over, and it makes the user testing much easier because now you are not relying on one person's schedule. You can spread it with the whole team.
What did you mean by identify what we're really testing?
Yeah, because I guess there are different kinds of things that you want to actually test. I think one of them probably is the concept, but sometimes maybe you want to test particular part of the prototype as well, and try to figure out what is the most important thing. I guess this sticky actually belongs to both prototypes and the testing script, because if you are trying to really focusing, okay, one example could be in the past that we have an idea about using a what was it called now, the robots chatbot, to help people to do like therapy session or something. We were not sure if that was going to work, so then we created like a website, have a chatbot on there. At first, we tried to put in a lot of details on the website to explain our concept, our idea, and everything. But then in the end, we found that it was actually very, very distracting. So then we actually had to cut down a lot of content that we had, and then really make the chatbot as a focus. So those things, like if you could identify it, then it actually changed the direction of the prototype and also change the direction of how you want to do the user testing in a way.
So that do you ever find yourself changing things in midstream when you're testing?
No, I try to avoid that. Like, because you want to actually get the feedback. Like, one thing actually has happened was like, okay, we have maybe done the first interview and then people were like, oh, the feedback was not so great. Something that I knew that it was going to be wrong, but it really was wrong. And then they were thinking, okay, should we change the prototype? My advice is every time like not to do it, because that's the whole point of user testing. You actually want to get like all the different feedbacks from all the different people. The first feedback doesn't mean that it's right. And that's why I feel like stick with the prototype, so then you get the like all the feedback is really testing for the same thing instead of like changing along the way.
I think one thing you can do is spelling errors, like low hanging
Oh yeah,
fruit, like
those.
things where it's like the quality of like the QA of it. So if things aren't functioning as intended, then that's the thing. But I think materially you're right. You don't necessarily want to change things wholesale or change the dynamic of a page just because you have a naysayer that comes across and goes, I would never use this thing. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Blah. You know.
Yeah.
Yep. So then you have relax here. And so take it easy,
Yeah.
let time drive what to prototype. I'd like to get a little bit more your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I guess the whole point is don't stress yourself out. One is if it can't be done, then let's stretch it to Thursday. The other is maybe you guys don't want to stretch it and really want to stick with the design sprint timeline, which is the 4 days method. If you want to use the 4-day method, then let the time to drive how much you actually want to prototype. So if you're running out of time, then just prototype less, focus on the less detail, figure out what are the most important screens you want to prototype and just do those first. And then when you have more time, then do more. Otherwise, then just call it, okay, that's done. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if sometimes it's, and I kind of referenced it in the previous one, but it's really important that when you're doing this is that you keep your designs aligned with your long-term goal and sprint questions.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you want to have it so that if you're ultimately wanting to answer some questions you had on Monday, and your designs continually align with those, then it's going to be much easier to answer them. But if you just do it for the sake of really showcasing the value in one particular feature because it's really novel, that's always great. But you're going to have that retrospective where you go, can we answer our long-term goal? And more often than not, if you haven't aligned your design properly, there is a chance that you probably can't, unless your long-term goal was really ambiguous to begin with. Then you're just kind of stuck to being there. So like, long term, we're going to change and cure cancer and change the world, then you're going to have an ambiguous kind of, our prototype is definitely going to solve cancer. It's like, oh, good. Well, then let's broadcast that because people want to know about it. Okay. Anything else for Wednesday?
Can't think of anything actually. I think Wednesday is really prototyping day. So
Yeah, it is. This is also the day where it's important to stay focused. And what I mean by that is, and this happens in regular design sprints, people have this tendency to stray off because now they feel like it's now handed off to somebody else. And you want a structured, you basically want to do the same thing that you did in Monday and Tuesday with like a structured agenda, but now it's a structured list of to-dos and responsibilities. So it is literally a script. So responsibilities. Did I get it right? No, I forgot the S. Hang on. Think. Okay. And so that goes for every single like role or hybrid role. And this is going to be done in advance of Wednesday. So before you even when you get to that stage, you're going to have, it's like, okay, if you're here, if you're doing designing, if you're doing copy, if you're doing strategy, if you're doing advising, here's what you should be doing alone, and this is what you could be doing as individual teams, like small groups, and your goals and your outcomes are these. So some people may work faster than others, but the whole point of that is that you're not off the hook right when that Tuesday in the solution sketch hits. Now you're kind of going, okay, you have the things that you can put into Discord or to email and say, like, here's what people need to know. Here's the assets. Here's the copy. And it kind of puts people in the mind that everyone's kind of running in tandem to the finish line of putting something up for testing in the next couple of days. But making sure that there's a time budget with each align item so that you're not overwhelming yourself. There's the default stuff, then there's the value adds if you want to put more time into it.
I think that's when like apps like Trello or Basecamp, those like could be very handy here. Sometimes we just have like a little Kanban board on Miro. I think that also links to, I don't know if you actually, I forgot if you actually covered that about this synchronous communication there. So be mindful with that. there will be a lot of asynchronous check-in. The designers may wanted to ask the team for opinions, and you want to kind of respond fairly quickly in a way. I mean, we know that there are different time zones, but whoever is available should be able to respond them so that they can make a decision quickly during the prototyping phase.
So one thing is to respond to offline communication on your schedule and to get your stuff done that you want to get done. Sometimes if you're using WhatsApp, at lunch you'll see 16 messages, and it's always that anxiety of having to miss a certain work stream where you could have put in something and you feel kind of bad because you're putting in a message afterwards. That's okay, because that's just going to happen. The thing you don't want is just to check in once in a 24-hour period, because you still want to stay kind of in tune and where you want to be with things. So don't wait till the last minute and check in at 10 o'clock when everything's done. And again, it'll be part of the script. It's like how often you should check in. And if you work that out ahead of time, you can do it's really so similar to Agile. You do 15-minute check-ins to say like where people are. And those are really quick kind of things. You can do it in text so nobody has to call. You can use the phone feature in Mural or in Miro. I think Miro's got one too, but they used to appear. I'm not sure. But you can use that as a vehicle for really quickly getting on voice and just saying, okay, here's where I'm at. And if anybody has any questions, they can do it then. But 3 times a day probably is a good time to do it, like at times that makes sense. And if that can't be achieved, then offline communication usually does the trick.
Yeah, using Loom video is also very helpful to actually demonstrate a point on the prototype. Like if you have a question on the prototype and you want to communicate that, it's going to be pretty hard to actually explain in text, I feel. So sometimes we just record like a Loom video with a screen share and say, oh, I need your opinions on this. What do you think of that? Should this image to be here, or what kind of image to go there? That kind of thing. Like I feel that is often more helpful with video sharing. And I like how you put periods after the stickies to make it like a proper sentence.
Yes, I do. I that's habit. So, I'm gonna put this over here for that one. Yeah, I think I've already said it. You just need a script, and that should probably be where you are. So Wednesday looks pretty different from both Monday and Tuesday. If we take a step back at things. So Monday and Wednesday are pretty pronounced, Monday being a lot of work, and then Tuesday being something where it's really involved depending on who you are and what you do.
And Friday is a punch.
Friday is a punch. Wednesday is a little bit more focused on kind of creating things. But my thing I'm trying to communicate here is that don't leave it up to one person. Really do work as a team and keep that flow. And then you'll find that a lot of what you do is probably going to come together in a really meaningful way. Yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So we went over the prototype, the preparing for user testing. I brought in a small puppy for a picture, I don't remember what the context was, but it's something. Puppy pictures when it came to the prototype. To relax and stay focused and make sure that there's ample offline communication happening with the team, especially if you start working in asynchronous mode. And I think that about covers it. Is there anything else I missed, Sandy?
No, I think Wednesdays, it's a lot of work, but it's not that different kinds of work going on like Monday and Tuesday. So yeah.
Yeah. And then Thursday is just party. So when me and Andy talk later on, we're just going to be saying, it's going to be, we're going to have two digital stickies and that's it. That'll be all it is.
You can change the heading to be like how to host the best party virtually.
Yeah. How to properly celebrate your virtual design sprint. And then that could be Thursday and Friday. So I think that's probably a good way of ending the week so far that we've been doing here. I'll sign both of us off, Sandy. You can stay on after I stop the live feed. But so thank you very much for watching this. If it's been live on YouTube, I thank you, and my little doggy head up here thanks you with a little bit
What is his name?
Just called Doggy. It's a Dalmatian, but just called Doggy Dalmatian.
Okay.
And thank you very much again, Sandy, for coming on and giving your perspective. And hope everyone who's watching this in the future, have yourself a good day, a good weekend, maybe Happy New Year if you watch it on the 31st. happy Thanksgiving and happy Halloween and happy birthday. I'm just trying to cover all the bases.
Sure.
All right.
Happy birthday.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for
Cool.
watching. See you later.
Yeah, thanks.